the defense budget is being cut. So that's going to have some impact on Northern Virginia as well as Hampton Roads, because right now they are very defense intensive. So I would not expect Northern Virginia to grow as fast, but they have a highly educated population, which means that their skills are very easily transferable into other occupations. And so as the defense jobs go away, I'd expect to see some transitioning into other types of consulting, maybe environmental. The Richmond area is seeing significant growth because of Rolls-Royce and because of Fort Lee and the expansion that they're seeing doubling in size. That's the southern part of the Richmond MSA. The Lynchburg area is benefiting greatly from the resurgence in nuclear that we had been seeing. And so there's significant demand in the Lynchburg area, especially for engineers. Charlottesville has been, and it will probably always be, dependent on the university and state government in terms of growth. Southwest Virginia, we've already seen some transitioning with growth in manufacturing as well as growth in computer-related industries in Russell County in particular, where CGI and Northrop Grumman moved in about 5 or so years ago, and they have been growing at a better than expected rate. Within the valley, you also have some advanced manufacturing with Nestle's, for example, that is showing some fairly good growth. The housing industry plays a very important role in the state economy. And if we just look at this past recovery, we've been out of recession for a couple of years now, but we've been growing at a very slow rate, in part because the housing industry is not growing. When we see more houses built, when we see people moving into houses, they buy furniture, they buy draperies, they buy appliances. And from that perspective, there's a large multiplier effect or ripple effect into the economy. So when the housing industry is growing, the overall economy typically is growing at a better pace. When housing prices were going up 10 and 20% on a year-over-year basis, people were refinancing their homes because interest rates were fairly low at the time. They were taking money out of the equity of their home and they were spending it, vacations, remodeling their homes, and on other things. That propelled the economy in the 1990s and early 2000. And we're seeing the opposite now. People don't have the equity to take out of their homes, and in some cases, their house being underwater, it causes them not to be as mobile. When they're offered a job in a different state, they may decide not to take the job because they can't sell their house at a profit. Or if they sold their house, they'd have to pay the bank money in order to get out of the loan. So that's probably had an impact on people who have not bought a house, being more cautious for fear that, again, we're going to go into a situation where home prices start to plummet. The nice thing about going into a recession or into a slow economic time is that interest rates come down, which means houses become much more affordable. And as housing prices have come down, they've become much more affordable as well. But the offset to that is that the unemployment rate is higher, so less people can afford to buy a home because they don't have jobs. And then banks, because they have just seen a lot of losses and delinquencies have gone up, they pull back on their credit and they become more stringent on who they give loans to. In the current, and this is typically a cycle, that banks are too loose for a while and then they're too tight on their credit quality. So we're now at that phase where banks are pretty tight in terms of how they give out loans. So you need a lot more documentation. You need a higher income than in the past relative to the loan value, which is all good because it's better that you not buy a home if you can't afford it, given your income and your debt load. So I would expect that banks, though, as we go again forward over the next few years, will loosen up on their policies, but not get back to some of the policies that mortgage lenders had 7 or 8 years ago, where they were giving out loans without seeing good documentation on income or giving out loans with 0% down. I believe those days are behind us for at least 2 or 3 decades until we forget those mistakes. Clearly, the student debt is going to have an impact on housing in terms of students are not able to afford a house right now as they used to be coming out of school. It used to be that maybe 3 or 4 years out of school you could earn enough money, save enough money to buy a house. Now 3 or 4 years out of college and you still have a $40,000 debt, which unless you're making a lot of money precludes you from being able to get a loan to purchase your first home.